All right, Tabosai. Good morning. We're going to begin. So first of all, a special Yasher Koach to Said, and I think to Baruch Fischel helped out this morning, and to Yecheskel who provided some of the mazonos as well. But really, a special thank you to Said. I WhatsApped Said yesterday. Yes, thank you. I wanted to get that in. So just that Baruch Hashem, on a day like this, when we have like a couple of hours to sit and to learn together. Just kidding. Right, to go ahead and Baruch Hashem to prepare a nice breakfast, and Said, of course, Kedarko. You know, some people, you ask them for something like 2 hours before the shir, and they'll, Said, I could have called him up this morning, and he would have gone ahead and had it done, Baruch Hashem. So an incredible Yasher Koach to Said for doing this, and Yasher Koach to our co-sponsors, the breakfast this morning, sponsored by the Cones, Baruch Hashem, just in honor of Torah. In honor of Torah, and a thank you to Said, and co-sponsored by the Silvers. This might sound a little bit strange, I'm actually sponsoring in honor of my anniversary, which Baruch Hashem is. And the truth is, I told my wife that I was sponsoring the breakfast in honor of my anniversary. She's like, yeah, and what else? So the truth is, I'm doing it because mamish, I have incredible akar satov to my wife, because I would not have done anything in life, let alone be able to prepare a shir every single day, if she would not shoulder the overwhelming majority of life responsibilities. So Baruch Hashem, I dedicate this sponsorship Bizechusa, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should just give her many more years, Arichus Yomim, Arichus Shanim, an incredible koach to be able to raise our family, and Halavai to be able to give me the time to be able to share Torah with all of you.
Jewelry stores are open tonight.
Jewelry stores are also, yes. Thank you, Yecheskel. Feel free to pick something up. All right, so let's go a little bit weiter. The truth is, I believe it's not about the Gashmius. You know, I could say that here, right? So let's pick up. So today's daf is daf Lamed Aleph. Oh, and we dedicate our learning as a zechus for Refuah Shlema for Avram, Yeshaya, Ben Shira, Yehudis. We hope that on the merit of our collective Torah, the Chola will have a complete and enduring refuah.
Amen.
So as it says, the Gemara, Bo Bayom, Darash Rabbi Yoshua ben Hyrcanus, Shalo Avad Eov. So we'll say, remember again, the Mishnah recorded an interesting machlokes regarding whether or not Eov went ahead and worshipped HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Ava or out of Yira. Did he worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of a sense of love or a sense of fear, awe, reverence? So if you remember again, it all came down to how the Gemara understood a particular pasuk. The pasuk that the Mishnah quoted from Eov was Hein Yikdaleni, even if HaKadosh Baruch Hu would kill me, Lo Ayachel. Now, the word lo is sometimes written Lamed Aleph, sometimes written Lamed Vav. If you read it Lamed Vav, Lo Ayachel means even if HaKadosh Baruch Hu would take my life, I would still pine for him, meaning my commitment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu defies everything. Even if he were to take my life, I would still love him. On the other hand, if you read it Lo Ayachel with Lamed Aleph, then it means HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you took my life, do you think I would still pine for you? Meaning, I love you, but I don't love you that much. So again, the shaila was, did Eov have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Ava or out of Yira? So it says, the Gemara Belech say hi, lo, Iba Lamed Aleph ksiv, lohu, Iba Lamed Vav ksiv, lohu. So it says, I don't understand, what's the shaila? If it's written Lamed Aleph, it means no. If it's written Lamed Vav, it means to him. So if it's written Lo Ayachel Lamed Aleph, it means that Eov saying Kadosh Baruch Hu, I love you, but even that love has certain limitations. Versus if he says Lamed Vav, to you HaKadosh Baruch Hu I pine, no matter what happens in life, that means he loves HaKadosh Baruch Hu, again, independent of his life circumstances. So why is this a machlokes? Why don't you just look at how the word itself is written? To which the Gemara says, well, is that true? Lohu, is that true that every single time the word is written, Lamed Aleph means no? Ha, the Gemara says, Ela me'ata, b'chol tzarasam lo tzar. Dichsid b'lamed Aleph, so the Gemara wants to flow something very interesting, which is that answer that the Gemara just gave is presupposing that every single time the word was written Lamed Aleph, lo means no. So is that true? The Gemara says every single time it's written Lamed Aleph, that means no. What about the following pasuk? So the Gemara now here quotes a pasuk from Yeshayahu. So the pasuk says, B'chol tzarasam lo tsar. Now, both say now, literally, if you read it like this, the way it would read is, in all of Klal Yisrael's suffering, lo lamed aleph lo tsar. It doesn't bother Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So is that true? Is that true that literally, if Klal Yisrael suffers, it doesn't bother Hakadosh Baruch Hu? Hachinami delohu v'chitei machinami. Maybe you'll say in Hachinami. Maybe that's the rebuke that Hakadosh Baruch Hu is giving to Klal Yisrael in Yeshayahu. Remember, Yeshayahu is the Navi who gives incredible amounts of rebuke to Klal Yisrael. Maybe he's saying God is so angry with you that He's become even indifferent to your suffering. That can't be. V'haksid, the pasuk says, umalach panav hoshiyim. And what the Gemara is doing is quoting the rest of the pasuk. The rest of the pasuk is umalach panav hoshiyim. Literally, HaKadosh Baruch Hu instructs the malach to turn his face towards Klal Yisrael and to save them. Ba'ahavaso ubechemlaso hu ga'alam. In His love and His concern for us, He redeems us. So the rest of the pasuk clearly tells us what Rabbosai, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does care. Therefore, lo, even though it's written Lamed Aleph, cannot just simply mean that God is not interested, that God is uninterested. Rather, what do you see from here? Ella mashmahachi umashmachi. Rabbosai, this is very interesting. Rather, what do you see from here? You see that the word Lamed Aleph lo, sometimes lo means no, and sometimes lo is interpreted as how? Even Lamed Aleph sometimes is interpreted as Lamed Vav to him. As such, the Gemara says that's why there is the ambiguity regarding Eov. So when Eov says, Hein yikteleni, lo ayachel, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu were to take my life, lo ayachel, does that mean, lo ayachel, Lamed Vav, Ribono Shel Olam, I'm yours, no matter what you do to me, I'm yours? Or is it lo ayachel saying, Ribono Shel Olam, there's a certain point in time after so much suffering, I don't know if I can still have a connection to you. That's the machlokes Rabbosai, and that's the fundamental dispute. Did Eov serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Ava? Did he serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of love? Or did he serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Yira, Rabbosai, you have to understand something. What the Mishnah is highlighting over here is the following. Both Ava and Yira are incredible ways, incredible drachim, incredible pathways to service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Here's the difference. At some point in time, the concern if a person worships HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of yira, out of fear, is what? At some point in time, a person could be tired of living in fear. No one likes to live in fear. And at some point in time, the concern is that if my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is about yira, at some point in time, I may just say, I don't want this anymore. As opposed to when a person serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of love. Love is an emotion that constantly endures. Love is an emotion at the end of the day, which again, even if things don't go my way in life, if the underpinning of the relationship is ava, then by definition I want to maintain that devekis even when things in life are not going so well. So that's the fundamental machlokes about the nature of the relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Eov. So the Gemara continues with this. Tanya. Rebbe Meir says, Ne'ema Yirei Elokim be'Eov and Ne'ema Yirei Elokim be'Avram. So Rebbe Meir says, it says that Eov was Yirei Elokim, and it says that Avram was Yirei Elokim. Now, both say, this is an amazing statement. Ma Yirei Elokim are be'Avram be'Ava. So both say, this is so interesting. Just like when it says Yirei Elokim by Avram, it means what? It means Ahava. It doesn't mean Avram Avinu, doesn't mean that he feared HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but rather, again, it means that he had a sense of love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Yirei Elokim, that's said by Eov, also means bi'ahava, also means out of love. Aisa asks the Gemara, Avram Gufei Minalan, how do you know that Avram Avinu worshipped HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Ava? Dichsev Zera Avraham Ohavi. To which the Gemara says, because the pasuk in Yeshayahu speaks of Klal Yisrael as the offspring of Avraham who loved me. Ohavi, the one who loved me. So you see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu refers to Avram Avinu as someone who loved him and not someone who feared him. So the Gemara says, Ma'ika bein oseme ava le oseme yira. So asks the Gemara again. So now both sides, the Gemara is not asking over here, what is the difference in the quality of the individual? Meaning clearly there's a difference between someone who serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Yira versus someone who serves out of Ava. On the most basic level, someone who serves out of Yira, and I will say, if you remember again, we saw, this is why it's important to come at 5:45, because we saw this, right? We spoke about Yiras Hashem, and we spoke about that in Yiras Hashem there are two levels. What are the two levels? There's Yiras HaOnesh and Yiras HaRomimus. There's a fear of punishment, and there's a fear, but it's not really a fear, there's a reverence, there's an awe that's generated by contemplation of the greatness of the Ribono Shel Olam. So understand over here, we're not necessarily talking about Yira of Onesh. Yira of Onesh, we understand that's a very short-sighted relationship with God, because at some point in time a person is going to want to stop living with fear. The Gemara says, but qualitatively, or I should say from a results perspective, what is the distinction ultimately, again, between one who serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Yira versus one who serves out of Ava? Now, again, remember, in the Ramchal, we discussed extensively the distinction between these two forms these two forms of avodas Hashem. Now the Gemara is asking from schar perspective, what is the distinction? So says the Gemara, Ika hadesanya. Rabbi Shimon Elazar says, Gadol ha'osa me'ava yosem ena osa me'yira. The one who serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of ava, out of love, is greater than the one who serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of fear, out of yira. How so? Shezeh taloi le'elef dor, v'zeh taloi le'apayim. Because I will say the one who serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of fear, he generates schar for 1,000 generations. And the one who serves for HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of love generates schar for what? For 2,000 generations. So the Gemara says, Hachaksiv, here it says, V'oseh chesed la'alafim lo'ohavai u'lushomrei mitzvosai. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'll go ahead and I will give schar la'alafim. La'alafim ultimately meaning again for 2,000. La'alafim means thousands. The minimum of thousands is 2,000. So you see from here that those who go ahead and serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu again out of love ultimately are given at least 2,000 generations of schar. V'hasim ksiv, but it says Bayira l'shomrei mitzvosav li'elef dar. But yet again, Abosa, it says by ultimately Bayira that those who serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Yira are given reward for what? Are given reward le'elef dar for 1,000 generations. I says the Gemara Hasanami ksiv le'ohavav u'lushomrei mitzvosav li'elef dar. But in that same pasuk when it speaks about Yira, it ultimately also discusses Ava, and it says by Ava that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will reward them for 1,000 generations. To which the Gemara says highly desamichle v'highly desamichle. We look at context, and since in the context of 1,000 generations the primary discussion is regarding those who serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Yira, therefore the understanding is that if you serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Yira, the reward extends for 1,000 generations versus out of Ava for 2,000 generations. So we'll say bottom line is Baruch Hashem, either way there is incredible schar for those who serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, 1,000 generations is not bad either. But the idea ultimately is that one who serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of a sense of Ava, out of a sense of love, not out of a sense of fear, be it fear of Onesh or even fear of Romimus. So ultimately one who serves out of love, that type of relation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a lasting impact on an individual and on future generations as well. So the Gemara says the following. We'll say, just so you should know, by the way, that life, of course, proper relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a mixture of both. You need Ava, but you also have Yira. We'll say, why do you need both? And this is very important, because if all you have is Ava, Ava is great as long as you're into serving God. But the moment that you're not into serving God, then what happens? Just like Ma'asim Mecholim, what do you hear? People fall out of love. So you ever hear that expression? So what does that mean? People fall out of love? So more often than not, what that means is people have tired of trying to remain in love. Therefore, they have fallen out of love. Falling out of love often is the result of not trying hard enough to remain in love. Okay, there are exceptions to that as well. So with HaKadosh Baruch Hu also, it's nice to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Ava. But what happens, we'll say, if the alarm goes off at 5:05 in the morning, and I'm just not feeling so in love, right? I'm just not feeling it. So what happens then? So I'll say that's where Yira kicks in. And Yira kicks in and says, get out of bed because this is something I have to do. Not because I'm going to get patched if I don't do it. That's not how HaKadosh Baruch Hu works. But that, again, Yira says, I have responsibilities. And I will say, this is a very important yesod. And this is sometimes why we don't pick up enough traction in our Judaism. Because it's all about, like, feeling good and being in love. So when I'm into it, I'm into it. But then again, when I'm not into it, I just simply fall off the wagon and just do whatever I want. Life can't be like that. That's not how HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ava is wonderful. And when you're not feeling it, Yira says, get out of bed and do what you have to do. I'm not just talking about shir, I'm talking about everything in life. So Yira says, even if you're not feeling it, even if you're not in the mood, even if you're not feeling so about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yira says, you have a job to do. I'm soldier in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's army. The general gave me expectations, the general gave me orders, and that's what I have to do. It's great if I feel it, that's Ava, but even if I don't, Yira says, when there's a job to do, I both say, right, I think most of us show up for work, even when we're not so in the mood to work. Why? Because as much as your boss might like you, if you don't show up, that liking you is only going to get you so far. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your parnasa. Yira says, get out of bed, get your act together. You have stuff to do even if you're not feeling it. Gemara goes off for the story. Hano trei talmidim. Both say there were two talmidim that were once sitting before Rabba. Chad amar lei akaryun b'chalmai. Both listen to this. These students had a dream. Both say, halavai, we should have dreams like this. So the first student said, Ma rav tumcha asher tzafant l'recha. The first Talmud says, I had a dream, and in my dream, there was a voice that was telling me this pasuk that said, Marav Tovcha, how great is the good that you have hidden away for those who revere you. The Chazar, the other one said, it's funny, you should say that I also had a dream, and in my dream, Akarion B'chamai, they were reading to me the following pasuk, V'yismechu kol chosebach, li'olam yiranin, v'yaltzu b'cha, o aveshmecha. I heard they were quoting me from the pasuk in Tehillim. Literally, v'yismechu, they will rejoice, all of those who seek refuge in you. Forever they will go ahead and exalt you, and they will rejoice in those who love your name. So Amar Lahu, so Rava said to both of them, Tarvaichu Rabbanan Sadiki Gimuri Asun. First of all, Rabbi said, can you imagine that you dream about Psukim? How we should be Zocha. Right? So it's the famous Vart. The Ger Rebbe, the basis also brings this down. It's been mentioned many times that you see this is the impact of Galus. He points out that at the beginning of last week's parsha, Yaakov Avinu was dreaming about the Sulamutz of Arza. He's dreaming about, ultimately, again, a ladder with angels going up and down. That's the beginning of the parsha. And then by the time he's finished with Lavan, what is he dreaming about? He's dreaming about sheep. Right? So you see over there, it says the base Yisrael, you see again how sometimes what Galus, what living in the Veld does to a person. You begin life with incredible dreams and aspirations of Ruchnius, Malach Elokim, Olim V'Yardim Bo, and then as time goes on, what are you dreaming about? You're dreaming about money, dreaming about sheep, you're dreaming about Gashmios. That's what happens in life. Halavai. So Rav is saying to these two Talmidim, look how incredible you are. You're both dreaming about Psukim. So what's the difference between you? Amarlu Tarvaichu Rabbanan Sadiki Gimuri, Asun Mar Me'ava, Umar Miyira. But the difference is one of you serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Ava, and one of you serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Yira. Because remember again, one of them, Rabbi say, the Pasuk, made mention ultimately again about Yira, Yiras Hashem, and the other made reference about Avas Hashem. Therefore he's saying your dreams reflect your different spiritual qualities. One of you serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu out Ava, and one of you serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu out Yira. I just want to end the parak just with a beautiful idea by the Maggid of Mezrich. So the Maggid asked the following question. He says, remember again, the Gemara says that Avram Avinu served HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of Ava. How do we know that? Because the pasuk in Yeshai refers to Avram Avinu as Avraham Ohavi. So asks the Maggid of Mezrich, why is Avram Avinu out of all the avos? Why is he given the title of Avram Ohavi? Why is he called the lover of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Why is he identified with Avas Hashem? So listen to this. Listen what the Maggid of Mezrich writes. He writes, Ki hu nolad miterach shaya shakua ba'omek haklipa. Because he was born to Terach, and Terach was an idolater. V'hayatzarich givura yisera miyuchedes b'mina, b'chtei lahamshich es chelek ha'av shebo u'lahafcha l'kedusha. Rabbi say, all of us have a part of our father imprinted within us. We have part of our mother also, but much more our father. Right? A child starts out often as a reflection of his father. So Avram Avinu was a reflection of Terach. Terach was an incredible idolater. And what happens? What Avram Avinu have to do? So it's not the pshat Avram Avinu just had to find God. Avram Avinu had to change that chilik of his father that was embedded within him into an Oved Hashem. Avram Avinu had a chilik literally of Avodah Zorah in him that he had to change around. V'zeh garam l'mayla tanig v'nachos ruach miyuchedas. Mash'en kein b'shara avos shenoldu b'kedusha v'lo haisa lahem ha'avodah kzos klal. So the Maggid says something absolutely amazing. The Maggid says, Yitzchak Avinu was born to a father who was an Avram, and Yaakov was born to a Yitzchak. So they already were born with spiritual DNA. They already had the chilik of their Av, the chilik of their father. Avram Avinu was born with nothing. See, we often say Avram Avinu was born into an idolatrous home. It's not the pshat that he was just born into an idolatrous home. He was born into an idolatrous home, and there was his father, the DNA of his father was embedded within him. He had idolatrous DNA. And Avram Avinu had to literally fundamentally not just change his circumstances, he had to change himself. The Ribono Shel Olam says a person who is born with but idolatrous DNA, or a person who's born with spiritually negative DNA, and does whatever they can, everything and anything in their power to change themselves, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's Ohavi. That's someone who loves me. Someone who grows up in a home or grows up in a family that nurtures spirituality, as Rosh HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's great also. But the truth is, they already began life with a leg up. But someone who goes ahead and actively swims against the current and changes the chelik of their ab that is within them, someone who goes through such Herculean strides and struggles to be able to have a relationship with me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, that's someone who loves me, and ultimately that's someone who I love. The Beis actually goes on, he says, that's why That's why we end the first bracha of Shmona Esrei with Magen Avram. He says again, B'chachosmin, that at the end of the day, as much as we make reference to all of the avos, at the end of the day, we most identify with Avram Avinu. Because Rabbi said the truth is, and this is amazing, again, if we had more time, I do want to finish the daf today, but I'll just tell you very quick. I just got a little carried away on legal holidays. But we have to mamish Thanksgiving for this. This is Ein Thanksgiving Gedola Mizo. So I'll say, just so you understand, what the Beis Yisrael says, that when we say Magen Avram, what we're saying is Ribono Shel Olam. Each of us struggles with a terach, right? Right? We each have a terach within. Sometimes it's because of the families in which you grew up, and sometimes it's because of the circumstances in which we place ourselves. Everyone has a little bit of avodah zarah implanted within their body, implanted within their neshama. And our job in life is to rail against the Yitzhara within, to rail against the terach within. And lest you think that it can't be done, Baruch Ato Hashem Magen Avram. Avram Oavi. Avram Avinu is our inspiration because he taught us that no matter how much avodah zarah you have within, no matter how much of the negative av I have within, I always have the ability not only to fight against it, but ultimately to overcome it. And not only to overcome it, sometimes I think to myself, well, all right, even if I overcome it, but still I'm never going to compare it to someone who's who never had the terach within them. It's not true. Because what HaKadosh Baruch Hu appreciates most in life are those who have the terach within, but those who find the courage to fight against it and ultimately overcome it. That's how you become in love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and beloved by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hadron Allah kishem shamayim. Weiter. Says the Mishnah, Misha kineli ishto. So we'll say again, back to Sotah, someone who warned his wife in Istira. So we'll say again, now we're back to regular Sotah. What's happening over here? A man went ahead and warned his wife against being alone with a particular man. And what happened? She violated the warning. Afilu shami of haporeach yotzi. So this is actually very interesting. Even if he literally hears that she went ahead and she violated the warning from a bird fluttering around in the sky, he divorces her and gives her a ksuva div Rabbi Eliezer. Now, what does that mean? So Rashi points out, remember, we know Rabbi Eliezer from the first Mishnah in the Masechta. What did Rabbi Eliezer say in the first Mishnah in the Masechta? Rabbi Eliezer paskin that you do not need edus for stira. You do not need edus ultimately for seclusion. But even an eid echad or even anyone ultimately again. So that's what he means when he says an oath fluttering in the sky. That if he hears that she violated the warning from anyone, Lemaisa, that's grounds ultimately for divorce and give her the ksuva. I will say, whenever we say divorce and give her the ksuva, of course what that means is if he chooses not to give her to drink, or if she chooses not to drink. Meaning, obviously, the process is Sotah, but if for some reason Sotah can't happen, he divorces her, she loses her ksuva. Rabbi Yeshua says, Ad sheyisu v'yitnu ba muzaras b'levana. Rabbi Yeshua says no, until when? Until ultimately the women speak about her in public. Now, both sides. Now, this is very interesting. So, again, all that's happening over here is our Mishnah is really just rehashing the same exact machlokes we had in the opening Mishnah in the Masechta. So again, we have Rabbi Eliezer saying that essentially if she violates the warning, even without Eidos, and again we'll see in the Gemara, even Eved, even Shifcha, ultimately they are believed, and Lemaisa again, she violates the warning, and therefore that triggers the Sotah process. Rabbi Yeshua Rabbi was the one who said that you need proper eidos for violation of stira as well. So he said proper eidos or until her indiscretion becomes so well known that everyone is speaking about it. That's the lashon over here. Ad sheyisu v'yitnu ba muzaros bilavana. Until literally the women who go ahead and spin their wool, spin their yarn under the moonlight. That refers to the yentas. So if everybody is speaking about her indiscretions, it's public knowledge. That's tantamount to what? That's tantamount again to having two witnesses testifying that she has violated the warning. So the Gemara goes weiter. Amar edecha daniri isiya shenitmes lo haisa shosa. Rabbi says similarly, if one witness came along and said, not seclusion, I saw that she committed adultery. Right? I saw literally that she committed adultery with a man. So what's the halacha? Again, she would not drink. In other words, if you have 8 echad that says that she committed adultery, she doesn't drink. Not only that, but even if the 8 echad is an eved or a shifcha, people who are normally puzzle for edus, so they are believed and she would not drink. Now, we'll say, remember, in any case where there's 8 echad, obviously you're not going to execute her for adultery based on 8 echad, but what can you do? Again, essentially disqualifies her from the Sotah process. So the Gemara says, not only does she not drink, but again, her husband would divorce her, and this Eid Echad goes ahead and prevents her from getting her ksuba. Plus, I understand what the Mishnah is saying over here is that the criteria for Eid Echad are significantly diminished. The reason for that is why? Because since at the end of the day we have Raglaim L'Davar, there's circumstantial evidence. What's the circumstantial evidence? Because there was Kinoi, there was warning, there was Stira, and she violated the Stira. So now that she violated the Stira, there's Raglaim L'Davar, there's circumstantial evidence that adultery did happen, and therefore if you have an Eid Echad, one witness that says she really did commit adultery, even if that Eid Echad is not normally a kosher Eid, we believe the Eid Echad, he has to divorce her, she can't drink with Eid Echad, and she loses her ksuva. However, chamoso bas chamoso b'tzarasa v'yivinto bas fayla. We must remember from our Yivamis days that there are certain women that are, even in situations where Eid Echad is believed, there are certain women who are not believed to give Eidus regarding another woman. Why? Because they are assumed to be locked in a constant state of marital tension with this woman. So for example, if her mother-in-law, the woman's mother-in-law says, it's interesting, by the way, how certain relationship dynamics, they're not new. It's just fascinating to see. So again, a woman and her mother-in-law, there's an automatic assumed tension over there. So if the mother-in-law says, I saw my daughter-in-law commit adultery, or bas chamosa, or a sister-in-law says it, vitzarasa, co-wife, Yivimta. Yivimta is essentially the wife of the husband's brother. A woman who technically, under certain circumstances, could become the co-wife of this accused woman. All of these women, or Bas Baila, or the daughter of her husband. So we'll say all of these women are assumed not to like the wife of the husband. So if any of these women testify that the wife indeed committed adultery, so they are believed. But they're only believed to force the dissolution of the marriage, but they are not believed ultimately again to go ahead and make the woman lose her ksuva, but they are believed ultimately again to preclude the woman from drinking the water. So for example, Abosai, again, so in this case, husband would have warned the wife went ahead and violated the warning. One of these women comes along and says, not only did she violate the warning, but what? I saw she committed adultery. So that testimony by itself will preclude the accused woman from drinking the waters, will also trigger the need for divorce, but will not cause her to lose her ksuva. Shahaya bedin. So the Gemara, because we could have made a kavachomer. What's the kavachomer? Umam edus rishon sheno sarta isra olam. We both say when it comes to the first edus. Now the first edus in this context refers to stira. When it comes to the edus about stira, she'eno sarta isra olam, that does not go ahead and aser her forever because she could drink the water even if she violates the stira yet. Eina miskayemes papachos mishnayim. So I thought Rabosai. So when it comes to stira requires two edim, and that stira doesn't even ask her forever. So eidos achrona, the last eidos. Rabosai, the last eidos ultimately refers to eidos regarding if she committed adultery. Shal sarta isra olam, which does go ahead and ask her forever. Eino din shlo tiskayim papachos mishnayim. I would have thought for sure again it cannot be upheld with less than two witnesses. Yet we know that's not true. Yet even Eid Echad is believed by Tuma to say that she committed adultery. Talmud Lomar ve'eid ein ba. Therefore, the pasuk says ve'eid ein ba. There is no witness about her. Kol eid sheshua. So the Gemara is going to explain this drasha, but we've seen this already. Eid ein ba. The Gemara is going to say eid means two witnesses. Eid ein ba. There are no two witnesses, but if there was one witness, then erachinami, one witness would be believed. So both say. So what we're holding right now is fundamental machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua as to the nature of testimony necessary for stira. Rabbi Eliezer is of the opinion that you don't need formal eidos for stira. Any type of eidos works, and any type of eidos ultimately, again, will trigger the Sotah process and will cause her to lose her ksuva. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, you need formal eidos for stira as well. Two witnesses. The only exception is if her stira is so well known that everyone is talking about it, then Lamaisa, that is tantamount to two witnesses speaking about it. Next, again, I will say we've seen that when it comes to Tuma, when it comes to testimony about her actually committing adultery, apparently, again, everyone will agree that even Eid Echad works, and even women who we normally don't believe will be believed to prevent her from drinking the waters, but will not be believed to cause her to lose her ksuva. So the Gemara says, V'kal v'chomer. The truth is, you could have made a kal v'chomer the other way. Let's kal v'chomer the other way. The kal v'chomer le'edos harishona. I could have made a kal v'chomer. The edos harishona, again, remember, refers to stira. So the Gemara says, me'ata uma im edos amud beis. Uma im edos achrona shel sarta isra olam. Harihi miskemes be'ed echad. So when it comes to Eidos Achrona refers to Tuma. When it comes to Tuma, meaning actual testimony that she committed adultery, when it comes to that Eidos, which Shabbos say, that Eidos will ask her to her husband forever, and yet Miskaimus Be'ed Echad, it's upheld with the testimony of one witness. Eidos harishona she'eino sarta isser olam. When it comes to ultimately eidos harishona, which is stira, which does not aser her forever. In other words, there's a way out of that, namely again through drinking the waters. Eino din shetiskayim be'ed echad. Then certainly again it should be upheld with one witness. Talmud Lomar. Therefore, the pasuk says ki matzah ba ervas davar. The pasuk Rabbi say when it comes to stira says that he will find regarding her an ervas davar, some matter of immorality. Ulahalon omer api shnayim edim yakum davar. And yet, again, by normal testimony, we'll call it by monetary testimony. It says, on the basis of two witnesses, the matter will be upheld. Malahalona pishnayim, just like by monetary testimony, you need two witnesses. Avkan pishnayim. So to matzah ba ervas davar tells me that for stira I need two witnesses. Rabbosai, so you understand? We have two incredible drushas now. So first of all, let's go in order. So matzah ba ervas davar tells you it's Gzeir Shav of davar tamama. We've learned this already. Gzeir Shav davar tamama. It says just like by monetary law, I need two witnesses. So too again by stira, I need two witnesses as well. In fact, again, we're going to see, at least according to Rabbi Yoshua, that davar teaches me that by kinoi and by stira I need two witnesses. But when it comes to tumah, when it comes to testimony about the fact that she may have actually committed adultery, then I have the drasha of what? Eid ein ba. And Eid ein ba teaches me that what? That lamaisa, there are no witnesses. But even if there's one witness has the ability ultimately to find her liable ultimately for adultery. Now when we see liable, that means it will preclude her from drinking the mei sotah. That's number one. And will cause her to lose her ksuba. So the Gemara goes weiter. Eid omer nitmeis ve'eid omer lo nitmeis. So what's an interesting case? Let's say you have an eid echad. You have an eid echad. One witness says that she committed adultery. But again, not just stira, she committed adultery. So one witness says she committed adultery, another witness says she did not. So, or isha omeres nitmeis, isha omeres lo nitmeis. Or Rabbi say one woman says, now we have women testifying. One woman says the accused did commit adultery. The other one says she did not. What's the halacha? Haisa shosa. So we'll say in that case, essentially they cancel each other out, and therefore what? And therefore again, it goes back to status quo. And Lamaisa, she drinks. Otherwise, we'll say because all we have the testimonies cancel each other out, and therefore she drinks the mei sotah. Fine, we're going to challenge that in the Gemara. Echad omer nitmeis, ushnayim omrim no nitmeis. What happens if one witness says that she committed adultery, and two witnesses says she did not? Therefore, what's the halacha? Haisa shosa. She would drink in that case. Shnayim omrim nitmeis. The echad omer lo nitmeis. If two witnesses says she did commit adultery and one says she did not, lo haisa shosa, she would not go ahead and drink. Fine, so we'll discuss the need for those particular cases in just a little bit. Says the Gemara, Hai Talmud Lomar ki matzah ba ervas davar Talmud Lomar ba. So what asks the Gemara, I don't understand. You learned out the fact, the Mishnah learned out the fact that you need two witnesses for kinui from the Gzeir Shava of davar. Asks the Gemara, I don't need a Gzeir Shava. Why don't you need a Gzeir Shava? Because I have a pasuk. What's the pasuk? The Gemara says, Talmud Lomar ba. Ba v'lo b'kinui, ba v'lo b'stira. But remember we had this. We spent a lot of time on this. The pasuk says ba. So ba teaches me that what? Eid echad only works by tumah. But Eid echad will not work by kinui, and Eid echad will not work by stira. So what the Gemara is asking, we would normally assume that you would only use a Gzeir Shava when? Only if you don't have a pasuk. But here I have a pasuk that teaches me that I require two witnesses by kinui and by stira. So ba teaches the Eid echad only works by tumah, but by echad doesn't work by any of the other cases. So I need the Gzeir Shava. To which the Gemara says, Hachanami coming. You're right. Talmud Lomar ba v'lo b'kinui ba v'lo b'stira. You're right. Einach will say we learn out that you need two witnesses by kinui and two witnesses by stira by ba. Because also remember, what's the ba? The ba is ve'eid ein ba. Eid ein ba teaches us that what? That Eid echad works by tumah, but by echad doesn't work anywhere else. So, right? That's how I know that Eid echad works. Eid ein ba teaches me that Eid echad works by tumah, but Eid echad does not work by kinui and by stira. So why do we need the Gzeir Shava? The tumah ba'alma below kinui below stira. So I say, how do I know that tumah ba'alma? Rabbi say tumah ba'alma means, let's say, forget about Sotah for just a moment. Let's say an Eid echad shows up in Beis Din and says, I saw that Rachel committed adultery. How do I know that an Eid echad is not believed under those circumstances? Ne'emar kan davar, v'ne'emar lahalan davar. Oh, that's the Gzeir Shava of davar. It says davar over here, ki matzah ba ervas davar, and it says davar by mamon. Ma lahalon b'shnei edim. Ma lahalon b'shnei edim, afkan b'shnei edim. Just like over there by dinei mamonos, by financial law, it's talking about two witnesses. So too over here, ki matzah ba ervas davar mitzvah. So both say, this is amazing. Just follow this. So here's what we have. The idea that by Tumah, Eid Echad is enough. We're going to learn out from the phrase, Ve'eid ein ba. There is no testimony about her. And we're going to dash in just a moment that even an Eid Echad is believed to say that by Tumah that she committed adultery by a Sotah. But how do I know by a non-Sotah case? In a general case, where one witness shows up and says that a woman committed adultery, how do I know that then one witness is not believed in a non-Sotah context? That's davar. It says ki matzah ba ervas davar, and it says api shnayim edim yakum davar. Just like by monetary law, davar means two witnesses, so too by ki matzah ba ervas davar means two witnesses as well. I aid omer nitmes. So they will also listen to this. So remember again, the Gemara says, the Mishnah gave the case over where you have one witness who says that she committed adultery, and one witness says she did not commit adultery. So we'll say, so what's the halacha in such a case like that? Essentially, the Mishnah says that what? They cancel each other out, and she drinks. Says the Gemara, the reason why she drinks is because there's a second witness who contradicts the first. But you see from here that what? If there was not a second witness contradicting the first, then that one witness would be believed to say that what? That she committed adultery. So the Gemara says, Minhani Mili, how do we know that one witness is believed ultimately to go ahead and commit adultery? So we're working a little bit backwards. So how do we know that one witness is believed by Tumah? How do I know that one witness is believed to say that she committed adultery? When we say, by the way, what does it mean when we say one witness is believed by Tumah? What does that mean? It means that we believe that one witness is believed to say that she committed adultery, namely, that the Sotah process is done. It comes to a screeching halt, he must divorce her, and she loses her ksuva. Where do we know that from? The Tanur Rabbanan, Ve'eid ein ba. The pasuk says, Ve'hinitma'a ve'eid ein ba. There is no witness about her. So b'shnayim akasa medaber, the pasuk is referring to the fact that there are not two witnesses. So the Gemara says, Ator b'shnayim eino ela be'echad. You'll say it's two witnesses. Maybe it's not two witnesses. Maybe eid ein ba means that there's not even one witness. Talmud lomar lo yakum eid echad bi'ish. The pasuk says that in general, an eid echad may not get up to give testimony about a particular individual. Mimashma shene'emar lo yakum eid ein yodeh shu echad. The Rabbi say, had the pasuk not said the echad, but the pasuk would have just said a witness can't get up and give testimony. Rabbi say, eid is singular. I would have known that it's referring to what? To a single witness. Ma tamalomar echad. So why does the pasuk have to add in the word echad? Zeh bona av. Rabbi say it's a binyan av. Binyan av is essentially the creation of a paradigm. So binyan av means you create a paradigm, and that paradigm ultimately serves everything else. What's the paradigm? Generally, the paradigm tells us like this. Anytime the Torah uses the word aid means two witnesses, even though it's singular. Until the Torah specifically tells you echad. Both say, listen to this. So now let's plug this back into Sotah. Every single time the Torah says aid really means what? Two. So therefore, when the pasuk says by Sotah, ve'eid ein ba. Eid ein ba means what? There are not two witnesses. But what? But there's one witness, and if there's one witness, v'hilo nispas, and she was not coerced, meaning she was not violated, then asura. So we'll say, what do you see from here? You see from here that an eid echad works by tumah, by Sotah. That if an eid echad says nitmes, that she was defiled, ultimately, again, that brings the Sotah process to a screeching halt, requires the dissolution of the marriage, and she loses her ksuva. So now watch this shayla. So this is very exciting. Not just because of the breakfast, but this is very exciting because again, this is like yesodistic stuff by Sotah. So understand what we've done. We've now established that I require two witnesses for kinui, two witnesses for stira, at least according to the first opinion in the Mishnah. And we've now established that what? That eid echad works by tumah. That if an eid echad comes along and says that I saw that when she was secluded with Ploni, there was bia, she actually committed adultery, we believe that eid echad. We don't believe the Eid Echad to execute her. We don't believe the Eid Echad to teach the adulteress. But we believe the Eid Echad to say that the process has come to a screeching halt. No administering of the waters. Divorce, no ksuva. So watch this. Now that we've established that, says the Gemara, get ready for this kasha. Listen to the shaila. So if you're going to tell me that an Eid Echad is believed, now I will say, understand, whenever you believe in Eid Echad, that means an Eid Echad has the power of what? Of as many as regular Eidus. So if that's the case, watch this. What was the case in the Mishnah? Case in the Mishnah was, woman had stira, woman was secluded with a man, Eid shows up and says, she committed adultery, I saw the bia, and then a second Eid comes along and says, that what? Nothing happened during the stira. So what did the Mishnah say? They cancel each other out, and she drinks. Asks the Gemara, why is that? After the first Eid gives his testimony, how could the second Eid contradict him? After all, the Ha'amar Ula, listen to what Ula said. Wherever the Torah believed one Eid, Harei kan shnayim. Rabbi say, whenever the Torah vests an Eid Echad with believability. I don't know if believability is a word. Ben Sion?
Credibility.
Ben Sion? Believability? No, I'm asking about believability. I don't know about credibility. I'm mechadish. Yeah, I think he said yes. Right? So when you go ahead, and the first Eid has believability, mamish, when he's believed, then what? Then he is believed like two. If he's believed like two, I will say that what happens when the second Eid shows up? Second Eid should just simply be dismissed. Because we already have established Eidus. Ve'ein devarav shel echad makom shnayim. And therefore, Rabbi say, see, here's what's interesting. What the Gemara is positing over here is that the first Eid Echad is believed like two, and the second Eid Echad is believed like one. And therefore, again, the first one should be believed, and the second one should be dismissed. But that's not what the Mishnah said. Ela Amar Ula Tani Lo Haisa Shosa. Se'ina Chinami. Ula changes the Mishnah. And Ula says in the case where an Eid Echad says she committed adultery, and then the second Eid Echad comes along and says that she didn't, that halacha she doesn't drink. Why doesn't she drink? Because we accept the testimony of the first Eid Echad, and therefore again he's believed like two witnesses. Therefore again, Sotah process is off, and we don't care about what the second Eid says. Rabbi Yitzchak agrees. For Rabbi Chia Amar Haisa Shosa. But Rabbi Chia says no. The text of the Mishnah stands that when the first Eid says that she committed adultery, and second Eid says that she did not commit adultery, under those circumstances, what? We will give her to drink. So the Rabbi Chia Kash does. So what does Rabbi Chia do? Rabbi Chia has Ula's Kash, because Rabbi said, what did Ula say? Ula paskind that when you have an Eid Echad, whenever the Torah believes in Eid Echad, so that Eid Echad has the power of two witnesses. If that's the case, so when the first guy comes and gives his testimony, he should be accepted like two witnesses, and therefore what? When the second guy shows up, what should we do with the second guy's testimony? What should we do with it? Ignore it. So what does Rabbi Chia do with that? Lo kasha. Rabbi Chia says not a kasha, and I'll tell you why. Kan b'basachos, kan b'ze'achar zeh. Both say, this is amazing. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Kan b'basachos, masnisin k'sheidu shnei besoch k'dei dibor, debatlu, devarav miyad delonis kami d'soma bezdin. Both say, listen to this. First, when both of these guys show up at the same time, b'basachos, they're giving their testimony. Rashi actually says that it's toch k'dei dibor of one another. Then what? That's when they cancel each other out, which makes sense logically. They're both coming with conflicting testimony, and they both recite that testimony toch kedei dibor within one another. They cancel each other out. So I'll say that's when the Mishnah says that what? That she drinks. Because when they cancel each other out, she's restored back to her previous status, which was suffix, and the only way to resolve the suffix is how? Through the drinking of the waters. However, again, kan b'ze'achar zeh. But Rabbi say, what happens if they go ahead and they come ze'achar zeh? So ze'achar zeh means like this: that lamaisa again, guy number one shows up and says she committed adultery. So in that case, we believe Eid Echad. His testimony is like what? Like two witnesses. Then when the second guy comes along 15 minutes later, we ignore him. Why do we ignore him, Rabbi Say? We ignore him because lamaisa again, we've already accepted the testimony of the first one. Rabbi Say, now when I say we ignore him, now obviously if that second guy comes along and essentially says the first guy could not have given that testimony because like an Edim Zomin, he was with us, then Inachinami will call the first guy's testimony into question. But if the first guy came along and said she committed adultery, and second guy, and again we accept his testimony like to Edim, then the Lamaisa again when the second guy comes along and says she didn't commit adultery, the halacha would be, at least according to this approach now, that we would not accept that second guy's testimony. So again, if they come b'basachos, they cancel each other out. If they come b'ze'achar zeh, the first one is already believed like two, and therefore his testimony is accepted. So Tanan, so the Mishnah quoted, Eid Omar nitmeis, Ushnaim Omrim lo nitmeis. So both saying, let's just go for a few more minutes. I know it's late, we'll stop literally in 2 minutes. So Eid Omer Nitmes, if one witness says that she committed adultery, Ushnaim Omrim Lo Nitmes, and two say that she did not commit adultery, so what's the halacha? Haisa Shosa. Rabbi say in that case what would happen? She would drink. She would drink. Because why? Because again, you have the two witnesses saying that she did not commit adultery. Ha chad v'chad lo haisa shosa. Rabbi said we could infer from that what? That if it was one against one, she would not drink. She would not drink. What does that show you? Tiyuf to Reb Chia. That poses a refutation to Reb Chia. But look at the end of the Mishnah. Ema seifa shnayim omrim nitmes ve'echad omar lo nitmes. But look at the end of the Mishnah. That if what two witnesses say that she committed adultery, and one says that she did not, lo haisa shosa, she would not drink. What can you infer from there? Ha chad v'chad haisa shosa. You could infer from there what Rabbi said, that if it was one against one, she would drink. So the point of Rabbi say is the Gemara is pointing out that the Mishnah has contradictory inferences. Elakula b'psule edus. Oh, well, say now watch this. Says the Gemara, the entire Mishnah is talking about a different kind of case. All the cases over here are dealing with psule edus. Psule edus means what Rabbi say? Talking about people who are coming to give testimony who are not normally kosher to go ahead and give testimony. Rabbi Nechemiah, and our Mishnah affects of Rabbi Nechemiah. What did Rabbi Nechemiah say? Disanya, Rabbi Nechemiah, Omer, get ready for this. Kol makom shemina Torah eid echad. Halach acharov deos. Oh, mind-blowing. Rabbi Nechemiah says that Rabbi say any situation where the Torah goes ahead and believes in Eid Echad, essentially, when you believe a singular witness, what that is saying, Rabbi Nechemiah says, is all bets are off. In other words, that once you're believing one witness, what you're saying is you're operating outside of the normal construct of testimonial law. Now, what does that mean? Once you're operating out of the normal construct and framework of testimonial law, it becomes a numbers game. It's all about which side has more people supporting its opinion. That's what it means. Halach acharov deos. Meaning, both say, once we're no longer concerned about the character or the quality of witnesses, it becomes a numbers game. Whichever side has the greatest number of people supporting its particular opinion, that is the side that wins in halacha. Now watch this. And therefore, again, two women testifying against one man are no different kishnei anashim b'shechad. Like two men testifying against one. So here's what we'll say. In other words, once you understand this chap, Ben Sion, tell me if this terminology makes sense. Once you're operating outside of the conceptual framework and construct of the regular laws, normative laws of testimony, so all bets are off. Good formulation? Good. Right? So they'll say, these are everything I should add in a TM afterwards. You know, this is intellectual property of the Shul's Daf Yomi. So I'll say the idea over here, so you hear what's happening over here? Once you say that Eid Echad works, so that means you're operating out of the normative framework of Eidos. Once you're operating out of the normative framework of Eidos, so then we no longer look at the individual's identity. Instead, what do we look at? The collective number of people that are siding with any one opinion. Therefore, in any case you believe Eid Echad, two women are no different than two men, right? Two women giving testimony, sitting as two men, because now it becomes a numbers game. So watch this. The Gemara says the following. V'ika da'amri, others say, so both say, so therefore again, that's the Mishnah. So therefore the Mishnah, when it speaks out 2 verses 1, we're dealing with psula edus. And therefore again, in these cases where you have two who say that she committed adultery, and one who says that she did not, they won't drink. We don't care who the two are. Even if it's two women who say that she did not commit adultery, and it's one man, two women versus one man, again, in these type of halachos, the two women are stronger because they have the numbers. V'ika da'amri, there are those who say, let's just finish this up. V'ika da'amri, kolecha da'asa eid echad, kasher me'ikara, afilu me'am nashim, ke'eid echad damyan. Others say that no, wherever you have an Eid Echad kosher, and that Eid Echad is first, that even ultimately, again, if you have 100 women that come afterwards, those 100 women are still considered to be like an Eid Echad. Look at Rashi. Rashi says, V'ike da'amri kolecha da'asa Eid kosher me'ikara, va'amar nitmes, v'nes kabla eduso. Others say that what the Mishnah is teaching is the following. When an Eid Echad shows up, and an Eid Echad gives Eidus, and that Eidus was accepted, and therefore afterwards 100 women came, those 100 women are no stronger than an Eid Echad. So the other opinion says no. You know what the principle of the Mishnah is? The principle of the Mishnah is like this: that whenever you believe Eid Echad is believed like 2, and once you lock that in, it's locked in. And even if 100 women come along later on, those 100 women are still considered to be like what? Eid Echad. So you have two Eidim, the one Eid that's treated like two, against an Eid Echad. And therefore, again, top of Lamed Beis, let's finish the parak. What are we dealing with over here? Kigon da'asoi isha me'ikara. The case that we're dealing with in the Mishnah is a woman came at first. And Abba Sai Rashi points out, this woman came along, this woman comes along and says that the woman was secluded with the man, committed adultery. And afterwards, two Eidim Psulim came along and said that she's Tahora. So watch this. So Rabbi Nechemia Hachi, and understand this Rabbi Nechemia like this. Rabbi Nechemia Omer, Kol Makom She'emina Torah Eid Echad, wherever the Torah believes one witness. Halach Acharov Deos. We look at the majority. We look at numbers. Va'asu Shtei Nashim Bi'isha Achas, Kishnei Anashim Bi'ish Echad, and therefore we treat two women testifying about one woman no different than two men testifying about a man. Aval Shtei Nashim Bi'ish Echad. But Rabbi say if you have two women against one man, then kipalga upalga dami. Then that's like a split. They are of equal power. So the Gemara asks, "V'tarti b'psule eidos lamali." So Rabbi say, asks the Gemara, why do I need two cases? Look at Rashi. V'tarti b'psule eidos lamali lemasni masnisin halach acharov deos. So Rabbi say, if you notice again, the Mishnah illustrates the same case in two ways. In other words, the Mishnah is telling me that whenever I'm dealing with Eid Echad, so Eid Echad tells me that even Psule Eidos, even people who can't normally give Eidos are trusted, and therefore it becomes a numbers game. So the Mishnah illustrates that case, that principle in two different ways. Right? The first way it illustrated was, an Eid Echad says that she committed adultery, and two say that she did not. So the Mishnah says she drinks. Similarly, if two witnesses said she committed adultery, and one witness said that she did not, she drinks. I will say it's the same principle. What's the principle? That once you enter into the realm, once you enter into the realm of Eid Echad, we no longer look at the quality of the individuals testifying. Rather, again, we just look at numbers. So why do I have to teach you the same concept twice? So the Gemara says, what would I have thought? I might have thought that what Rabbi say. I might have thought that when do we say we look at the numbers? That's only l'chumra. But when it yields a kula, I would have thought that we don't. Kamash Malon, no. Pashon Rabbi say that once we delve into the world of Eid Echad, then what? Then it becomes a numbers game, and therefore whichever side has the greatest numbers ultimately wins, whether that result creates a chumrah or a kula. Rabbi say, so just listen to this. Halacha l'maisa, how do we paskin? So listen to this Rambam. So the Rambam writes, let's bring it up here. So the Rambam writes, this is in Perek Aleph of Hilchos Sotah. So boss, listen to this. Let me just read to you three quick halachas. Ba'id echad kasher va'amar nitme. So boss, first of all, if an eid echad came on, so first of all, you know the way we paskin, we already established this in the beginning of the parak. We paskin that you require two witnesses for kinui, two witnesses for stira. That's how we paskin. Listen to this case. Ba'id echad kasher va'amar nitmes. If an eid echad came along and said the woman committed adultery, harei za'ena shosa kimo shebe'arnu. So if an eid echad comes and says she committed adultery, again, eid ein ba. Just remember that. If you remember anything from this Masechta, you're going to remember eid ein ba. Say it after me. I'm just kidding. Right? Eid ein ba, right? So Eid ein ba teaches me that Lamaisa, again, bless you, an Eid Echad is believed by Tumah. That if an Eid Echad shows up and says she committed adultery, Sotah process comes to an end, she does not drink, divorce, no ksuva. Watch this. I will say, what happens if now a second Eid Echad comes along and contradicts the first Eid Echad and says, no, she did not commit adultery? Then what's the halacha? Listen to the Rambam. Ein shomin lo. We do not listen to that second Eid Echad. She'eid Echad betuma sota kishnayim ve'ein devarav shel acharon dochin divrei rishon shel b'shnayim. So we'll say we pass halacha l'maisa that once we believe in Eid Echad, and Eid Echad is treated like what? Like two witnesses. Therefore, once the first guy comes along and says she committed adultery, that's locked in. That's locked in, and therefore once the other Eid Echad comes in, we don't listen to them. I will say again, with the caveat that, like I said to you before, if the second Eid Echad comes along and says to the first Eid Echad, buddy, impossible, you're with me at Daf Yomi, you could not have seen. In general, if you come to Daf Yomi, you avoid a lot of problems. Right? So you could not have seen what you say you saw because you're with me. Then Ein Achinami, that's a different case. But assuming he's not contradicting the fact that the Eid Echad saw it, he's just contradicting the Metzius. L'maisa Eid Echad is once he's believed like two. Testimony is locked in. We ignore the second Eid Echad. Next case of the Rambam. Ba'u shneim ke'echad. Oh, this is great. So what happens if, however, Eid Echad 1 and Eid Echad 2 come at the same time? Ze omer nitmeis, ze omer nitmeis, osha amar echad nitmeis, uba shnayim acher amar lo nitmeis, harei ze shos. So listen to this. However, if they're coming, bebas achas, if Eid Echad 1 and Eid Echad 2 are coming at the same time, then what? Then the Rambam passes like the Gemara, they cancel each other out. Okay? Third case, which Rambam groups together, is Eid Echad comes along and says she committed adultery, and then two witnesses came along and said that she did not commit adultery. Then Abosai, in that case, what? In that case, where you have a real two witnesses, those two real witnesses will trump the Eid Echad. So again, remember, Eid Echad by himself is treated like two. So if Eid Echad gives his testimony, and then sometimes later, not babas achas, a second Eid Echad comes along, we do not listen to the second Eid Echad. We trust the first. If the two witnesses, however, come at the same time, they cancel each other out. If, however, it's an Eid Echad verse Shnei Eidim, but Rabbi say Shnei Eidim Ksherim, then the Shnei Eidim Ksherim, the two kosher witnesses, will negate the testimony of the Eid Echad. Next case where this will end, Ba Eid, this is so exciting, Ba Eid Echad Kosher, because you never know what's going to happen next. Ba Eid Echad Kosher. What if you have an Eid Echad who's a kosher, V'noshim Rabos, O Psulim Rabim, so we'll say, listen to this. What happens if you have the following case? You have an Eid Echad kosher, so a man shows up, and on the other hand, you have opposing testimony of a whole bunch of women or anyone else who's not normally able to give testimony. And what happens? Ha'eid omer nitmeis, v'ha'noshim psulim omrim no nitmeis. So we'll say in this case, the Eid Echad is saying that what? The Eid Echad is saying she committed adultery, and the group of women is saying that she did not commit adultery. What's the halacha? Harei ze shoseh. She drinks. Why? She'eid echad upsulin rabim kemechza mechza dan. This is very interesting because Rabbi say if you have an Eid Echad versus what? A whole group of psulim, they cancel each other out. In other words, that an Eid Echad kosher and a group of psulim is essentially the same thing as two Eid Echads that come bebas achas. So a group of women is no worse. This doesn't really sound right, but is no worse. Right? Don't say this part over at the Shabbos table. Right? A group of women is no worse than a regular kosher Eid Echad, and therefore again they cancel each other out. Let's just do one last case, and with this, I'll let you go. How you cool? This really, this is just exciting because just so you should know, there's no greater geshmak. It's the greatest thing in life. Like when you learn a sugya and then you see it halacha lemaisa. So you see the Rambam Mamish saying it. Last case. This is it. How you cool? Adam David. Don't go. This is it. How you kulam psulim. This might come up, and then you're going to say, "Oh, I didn't learn that." So how you kulam psulim? Let's say everybody is puzzle. Let's say again, in all these cases until now, I'm dealing with someone who's a kosher. Now let's say I'm dealing with a case where everybody's puzzle. Everybody involved in testimony is puzzle. What's the halacha rabosai? Halach achar harov. So again, when you have one of the witnesses who's kosher, so again, if you have one witness who's kosher, if the two kosher witnesses come at the same time, they cancel each other out. If they come at separate times, we believe the first guy, don't believe the second guy. If you have an Eid Echad kosher and a whole group of non-ksherim, again, bavas achas, they cancel each other out. Let's say there are no ksherim in the picture. All psulim, right? All psulim. Women, avadim, whoever else. What's the halacha? Then it becomes a numbers game. Ketzad shtei nashim omros nitmeis v'shalosh omros lo nitmeis hari zeshosa. If you have two women saying she committed adultery and three women saying that she did not commit adultery, then what happens? Numbers game. We go after the three. She drinks shalosh omros lo nitmeis v'arba omros nitmeis hari zeshosa hari zeshosa. So again, once you're dealing with psulim, then it's halach achar rov deos. Once you're with people who can't give testimony, then it becomes a numbers game. We look ultimately again as who has the majority. If it's the same number of people on each side, then Hari Zeshosa, then ultimately again they cancel each other out. She drinks. Hadrin Allah Mishekine. We'll say Mazel Tov. We finished our parak today. Baruch Hashem. All right. Shkoyah.